Back about 6 months ago, I introduced you to a plugin by Amino called WelcomeController. At the time, we didn't call it V1, but it was V1. The reason I can say that now is because V2 has just been released and is finally available to the public, and wow, is it ever cool. Let's jump in and have a look. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I'm teaching you everything that you need to know about owning and operating a successful Rust server. On this channel, I do plugin reviews and tutorials, plus I want to give you all of the little tips and tricks that are going to help you be more successful. If you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so that you stay up to date on everything that we're working on. And of course, if you take any value out of today's video, do me a favor, don't forget to hit that like button. So WelcomeController version 1 was a completely customizable info panel that we could display to our players as soon as they join the server. But as well as having a full display of all of the information about your server, it also had the ability to link the other plugins that were compatible with WelcomeController. And when version 1 first came out, it was great, but I thought it was just missing a little bit of something, and I didn't know exactly what that was. As soon as I saw version 2, I knew what it was missing. So of course you can get WelcomeController from CodeFlay. I'm going to put all the links in the video description down below. By the time you all see this video, the doc page is going to be filled with information that is not currently there right now. However, I did want to bring your attention to all of the add-on plugins that you can add on that work very nicely with WelcomeController. So we've got plugins like Skin Controller, Kit Controller, so on and so forth. So you can either buy WelcomeController by itself, which is a great plugin by itself, or you can pick any one of these add-ons that you see on the screen right there. Or of course, Amino has made a package bundle where you can buy most of the plugins that most admins or owners are going to want on their server. Obviously, the bundle purchase is the best value, but maybe you don't necessarily want to have all of those plugins, so you definitely don't have to go that route. At the time of the recording of this video, WelcomeController V2 is down from $29.99 US to $19.99 US. So of course, today would be a really great day to pick it up while it's on sale. Now, an important note, those that did purchase version 1 will get upgraded to V2 at no extra charge. All right, so let's dive into version 2 and I'll show you some of the features that set V2 apart from V1. Because what you're about to see is going to take up the entire screen and it's important that you see everything that's available, I'm going to shrink myself down for probably the rest of this video. I'm also turning off my overlay because seriously, you're going to want to see all of this stuff. So the very first time a player joins your server, they're going to be greeted with this brand new info panel. If you're already in the server and you want to bring the panel back again, you do /info in chat. And this is essentially a default right out of the box, what you're going to get on your server when you install this plugin. However, if you want to be able to edit this, you're going to need some permissions. So if we open up admin menu, you can see right over my shoulder there is WelcomeController admin. You're going to want to make sure that you have that granted to yourself or your group of admins that are going to need to have access. Once you have the permission, you can do /welcome_edit in chat and it's going to bring up the editor where all of the fun is going to begin. Now, at first glance, this is going to be an overwhelming amount of information. It was for me too. But if you just work yourself around and make yourself comfortable with what each one of these individual things is doing, it's actually not that bad. And again, if I hadn't mentioned it already, it's important to note that all of the editing for WelcomeController can now be done strictly within the UI. You don't have to bounce back and forth between the configuration file and the UI itself. It can all be done right here. So if we have a look in the top left-hand corner, you're going to see a section called UI panels. And this is where you get to control all of the different panels that you currently have on the screen when you just have this open right here. So the players panel, that's a panel. The home icon that you see there, that's another panel. The command buttons on the left-hand side, that is also a panel. You get what I'm saying. So you of course have full control over what each one of those panels looks like and how it functions. So if we drop this tree down here, you're going to see a bunch of different panels that come up and they have different names, of course. So if we click on players panel, you're going to see that it highlights the player counter in the top left-hand corner behind the editor. So it might be a little bit hard to see, but you get the idea. Or if we click on the title panel, which is what we're going to edit right away, you saw that yellow bar flash across the top of the screen telling you that you're editing the title panel that just flashed. So we're going to come back to those panels here in a second, but let's make a couple of changes along the way. So as you can see by default, it just says your server name. Well, that's no good. We need it to actually reflect the server that we're building this Welcome UI for. So if you go over on the right-hand side here, this is the actual panel editor. So this is where we can change the colors, how it responds when it gets selected, what it says, what font it's using, what colors it's using, everything. We get to change it all using this panel editor. So first and foremost, we of course can change the name. So you can type in whatever you want there and hit enter, and it's immediately going to update and change to whatever you've now put in that field. But if you click on this question mark right here, you're going to see some placeholders that can be used instead. So let's say you change the name of your server quite often, maybe sometimes every month or every wipe, however that works. You can make it so that this panel will update to whatever name you're actually using in your server setup file. So by changing this to host name and hit enter, you can now see that title has now changed to srtbull YouTube test server 2024. But that's not what we wrote down here. It's grabbing the actual information from the server. And you can use more than one placeholder there. Just bear in mind how much room you actually have there. So I'm going to add the world size. I'm just going to click on save. And now you can see that it says the name of the server as well as the server world size. Now, obviously that probably doesn't make sense for everybody. So let's just go back and change that to just host name by itself. That's probably good enough. But this is just to show you the different functionalities that you have access to. By using the color selector directly behind me right now, you can change the background color of whatever that bar is just by simply clicking on whichever color you want to see there. And if you want to change the opacity of it, you just need to change this number right at the end there. Let's make this a little bit lighter than that. And as you can see there, it's very faint. I don't even know if you'll be able to see that. A little bit darker than that. There you go. That should give you a pretty good idea. So you have full control over what this is going to look like as an end result. Now, one of my favorite things that Amino added to this is the ability to actually fade that in. So let me just change this back to a really solid color, and I'm going to change my fade to a full 5 seconds. And you'll see what this is going to look like here in a second. So I'm just going to click on save and watch it fade in, and it's going to take the full 5 seconds, but it fades into that solid color that we've now chosen. Obviously, this is just a ridiculous color. I wouldn't expect anybody to use that unless you were going with a pink theme. I feel that it just gives you the ability to make it so that your panel comes to life. It really feels like it's alive and moving. I just love it. We also have the ability to clone a panel that is currently existing. So if you have a look here, we've got this close button in the top right-hand corner, and I mean, sure, that's fine. And it works exactly as you would expect it to. But let's say I wanted to clone that button. I want to have another one somewhere on the page that actually says close on it. Well, I can do that simply by cloning that existing button. So let's find our close button. It's in the title panel, and then of course close button right there. And then we can click on this button right here. It looks blue, teal, whatever, and it just says clone panel. And then it's going to ask you which panel you want to parent it to. And we're going to parent this to the button panel. So as you can see, now it has parented this X over here to this button panel instead of over in this title panel. But it doesn't currently look very good. So let's play around. So let's navigate our way back to the button panel. And as you can see there, we've got this new close button XYR. Doesn't really matter. We can change that too if we wanted to. So if we click on it, you'll see that it highlights that panel in yellow. And it's actually telling you the shape of the panel that we've now created. But I mean, that's ugly. And if we take this X out of there and change that to close instead, which is the whole idea of what we're doing here, now you can see that it's vertical because it's trying to squish all that information into this long but narrow panel. So now we need to change the size of that panel in order for this to make sense. So now we're going to get into a really weird area, and in some people's view, this is fairly complicated. We're going to start talking about anchors. And even for myself, I feel that anchors is still a bit complicated for me. So if you don't get this right away, I totally understand. So if we start playing around with these arrows or these numbers on the anchors section, we can actually change what this panel looks like. So as I'm increasing this, you can see that the panel is getting wider, and now the word is actually going from the vertical state that it was into the horizontal state that we're actually going for. So if we save this, we can now kind of have a look at what we've now created. We've now created this button right here that says close, which is actually a clone of this one right up here. So now by playing around with my anchors, I've actually lowered it way down onto the screen so that it actually looks like it's supposed to be there. Click on save changes, and now you can see that it actually looks in line, and it looks like it's in a proper location. So now, of course, if you wanted to, you could change the font right here. We can scroll over to the permanent marker font, which is my personal favorite. We can also change the color of the text, and we can also change the size of the text. So let's say 30 is too big for what we're going for. We can change that to 20, hit enter, and of course you can see it shrink. Nice, small, quaint, looks like it's supposed to be there. It's using a Rust font. It feels natural. Just a win all around. So again, the whole panel section of WelcomeController is, I would say, a bit on the advanced side. Of course, once you own this plugin, you can play around with it to your heart's content. You can figure it out and see what advantages this is going to have. Let's say you had some logos or icons or images that you wanted to add to your Welcome Controller panel. Well, you would do that by creating new panels. And instead of using text like I have, you could use this image section right here and actually use URLs to the images that you want to display. Anyways, I'm going to leave that there for now. Play around with it, have some fun, get creative, and make your Welcome Controller your own. Where you're going to spend a majority of your time is in the info selector right here. Again, this is default, so you should have something that looks very similar to this. Well, this information that we currently have on the screen right there obviously isn't going to apply to anybody. So we're going to need to go in and change that. So we've got info, rules, kits, and shop. And you can see that that lines up directly with the buttons that we currently have here right now. So if we go into the info section, this is where we get to edit the information that first shows up on that info page. Now there's something really funky that happens with this page and it's really hard to explain. The best thing I can do is show you what's happening. So you see how this font right here where it says 10x gather rates is a certain size and then server info is a different size. But if you compare that to the Rust Admin Academy text that we see at the top there, you can see that that is actually much larger than server info. And the reason for that, that information is actually in this what appears to be an empty bar. So if you just click on the bar and hit delete, you need to create an error in the formatting that is currently on that page. Hopefully, if Amino takes my advice, this will look a little bit different for you by the time you see this video. He will have added the functionality of using square brackets instead of these brackets, which will make it so that it won't break that functionality. So you'll be able to see what you're writing amongst all the code and it's not going to disappear because you're using the proper tags. I know that gets a little bit, it's all up in my head, but I'm trying to express this to you so it makes sense. So hopefully by the time you see this video, this is what you'll see instead of something like this. So now we can change the size of that text to whatever we want and it's not going to disappear on us. You don't have to go hunting for this ghost text that's in this bar somewhere. So obviously go through this and make it make sense for your server, express the information that you want your players to see as soon as they join. Now I know a lot of you might be saying, well, what if one page isn't enough? Well, of course, Amino has already thought of that and built in the functionality for you to have multiple pages. But there's also another cool feature in there that I haven't talked about yet. So if we go into the UI panels, bring the tree down to the WC source panel, which if we select it is the panel that we're talking about right now. If you open that up, you'll see that there's 4 different versions of that same panel. And the reason for that is to give you the functionality of having multiple pages. Now, the feature that I haven't talked about yet is you can actually have an infographic at the bottom of your page and you can have it be whatever you want. Your server information, your Discord information, a picture of you and your cats. Doesn't matter, you can have whatever you want down there. So here's the breakdown of the different versions of these panels. TextPanel V1 is the one that you're currently seeing on the screen right now. A single page with no graphic at the bottom. TextPanel V2 is a single page with a graphic at the bottom. TextPanel V3 is multiple pages with no graphic at the bottom. And of course, TextPanel V4 is multiple pages with a graphic at the bottom. So refer back to this section of the video to get that sorted out. If we wanted to have the graphic at the bottom, we would go to TextPanel V2. We'd go into the bottom image selector right there, and then we would upload an image right here in this field. And as soon as we did that, it would switch everything over to TextPanel V2 and we would see that graphic at the bottom of this page. Bear in mind that I understand that what I'm saying might sound a little bit confusing. Once you actually have your hands on this product and are trying this yourself and you have my video playing on another screen or something like that, this is all going to make sense. So that's the info section. We're now complete with that. Let's go into the rules section, fill out your rules for your server. But let's say you want to add another button there. Let's say there's more information that you want to get across that's not your basic info and it's not your rules. Can be anything you want. Well, we can create a new info panel right here. And then we're going to be brought to this editor right here. So start at the top left and work your way down. Is this button going to be enabled? Yes or no. If it's red, it's not going to show up. If it's green, it is going to. Do you want to display the button name? This is important too. For all of the buttons that we use in this section right here, we can turn off the text if we're going to be using a graphic instead. Obviously, if you have a graphic there, you don't want to have text written over top of your graphic. The graphic is enough of a button. If you are using a graphic, then you would put that URL right in here, linking directly to your button image. We of course can give this panel a name and also name the button as we want it to appear on the left-hand side. And we can give these menus permission. So if we don't want somebody accessing it, let's say we wanted to have this section just for our VIP players, we can put in a permission here, grant that permission to our VIP players, and then only they will have access to it. And if they don't, they'll be hit with this message right here that says you do not have permissions to view this page. We should also add a command that will take our player directly to this page if they put that command in chat. So by default, it just put in a generic name there. Obviously that's no good. So let's delete that command by clicking on the X right there. And let's add the command in here. So let's do VIP, click on the plus button. You'll see that it shows up on the left-hand side here under commands. And then we can just go ahead and write whatever information we want in there. So let's click on save. We'll click on save changes. And now we can see that we've got this section in here called extra info because that's what I called it. But you'll notice that I gave it a different command. So if we close this out and we go in chat and we type VIP, it's going to bring us directly to that menu. So I'm hoping by now you can see the benefits of this functionality. If we want to add more lines so that we can write more information to our VIPs, we can just click on this button right here, add line, obviously. Add as many as you want. If you want to get rid of a line, you feel that you don't need to have that many, we can just click on this minus button right here. Super easy, right? Just always remember to hit save before you go on to something else. So as you saw earlier, we're on TextPanel V1 right now, which is single page and no graphic at the bottom. If we click on this button right here, add page, it will obviously allow us to continue writing onto another page, but it's going to kick us automatically into TextPanel V3, which is multiple pages, no graphic at the bottom. Call it an upgrade, call it a feature, call it a benefit, whatever you want. This functionality is awesome. When you run out of room on this page, click on add page, it automatically flips you over into the other TextPanel version. Good to go, completely seamless. If you remember from the beginning of the video, I showed you this list of add-on plugins built by Amino that work really nicely with Welcome Controller, and I'm going to show you how that all works right now. So as you'll see there, by default, you'll see this kits and shop. Well, that's kits controller and shop controller from Amino, from that list that we were just looking at. So in this specific instance, I'm not going to show you the shop controller. I've decided I don't want to have a shop controller on this server. So we can actually select shop and click on this red delete button in the bottom right hand corner, and it's going to remove that selection away from this menu. So if we save this, you'll see that shop is no longer on our list of buttons. But the one thing in here we do want is skin controller. I already have skin controller installed on this server, but I want to have access to it directly on this page. So we're going to click on create a new add-on. So same thing as before. Do we want this enabled? Yes or no? In this case, we do. We're going to change the title of this panel to skin. We're going to change the button name to skin also. We're going to change the add-on name to skin controller. But if you don't know how it's actually written officially from the .cs file, we can click on show add-ons. And as you can see there, skin controller with a capital S and a capital C, obviously with no space in between. So let's add that in there right now. Looks just like that. So now our commands, it's important that we change our commands. We don't like this command that it automatically generated for us. So let's just X that out and let's add another command. Let's add skin for now. So now as you can see there, skin will bring up skin controller. Let's also add in skins, plural. We can do more than one command for these panels. Click on the plus icon. Now you can see when I scroll side to side, we've got skin and skins. And same thing as the other panel that we created, we can gatekeep this if you want to, or you can make it not controlled by a permission. If we put in a permission there, obviously that's gatekeeping it. If somebody doesn't have that permission, they're going to be greeted with this message right here. You do not have permission to view this page. We're not going to do that for this example. Let's click on save. Now you can see that we have the skin button right here. And of course, if we click on save changes, we now have skin down here as well. So if we click on skin, it's going to take us directly into skin controller because I already had skin controller installed on this server. And the same thing goes with kit. I previously had kits controller on here as well. Now, of course, when you're talking about the add-ons from Amino, you don't necessarily have to have it working inside of Welcome Controller. They do also work as standalone plugins by themselves. And you can even have Welcome Controller on your server and not have skin controller or kits controller or any of the other add-ons working within Welcome Controller. They can also just be standalone plugins on the same server. It's all in how you want this to visually appear to your players. So everybody nowadays is all about themes. They want a one-click button that's going to change the theme of everything around them so that it matches the colors that they decide. So let's go into the color creator section right here and click on custom colors. This is a very powerful tool. So first of all, I'm actually going to skip the top section right now and I'm going to go into custom colors. So in the bottom right hand corner there, you can see all of these pre-filled in color selectors that we have full access to, and we can change whatever backgrounds we want using these colors. However, maybe these colors don't cover everything that you want to see on your server. You of course can go in and add your own custom colors using hex codes or RGB, whatever you want, with opacity selected, and you would have direct access to those colors on the color swatch in the bottom right hand corner. I'll show you what I mean. So I've just added those 3 custom colors, and now you'll see when I click on save changes, those 3 colors are now available right here whenever I'm selecting a color for any background or any color that I need to change. I can use the colors that I've pre-decided, and they're all readily available right there, easily accessible. But going back to the theme section, we can create a theme that is going to span across any of the add-ons that we've added to Welcome Controller. And by the time you all see this video, hopefully all of the add-on plugins that are supplied by Amino will have this functionality built into them. So let's just pretend for now that I didn't create those custom color swatches that you currently see on my screen. Let's change these colors up here to the colors that I've now selected down below. This is now a theme, but you're probably not going to notice a big enough difference, so I'm going to make it a little bit ridiculous. So I'm going to take this background color right here, which is an entire background. You'll see what happens in just 1 second. And I'm going to change it to a purple color. And I'm going to leave it at full opacity. You obviously probably wouldn't do this in a real world example, but I want you to see what happens when I click on apply theme. So I'm going to click on it, apply theme. I'm going to click on save changes in the bottom left hand corner. And now I'm going to go into skin controller and kit controller. You can see now it adopted the colors that we supplied in that theme and spread it across all of the different add-on plugins available from Amino. So once you've dialed in your theme and you have it absolutely perfect and you love it, you click on one button and it matches all of the add-on plugins to that same theme. So you get a consistent color scheme across all of those plugins. Let's lighten up that purple a little bit and see what happens there just for curiosity's sake. Apply theme, save changes. Let's go back into skin. So it's a little bit more palatable like that. We've changed the opacity back down to a little bit more reasonable situation. Again, obviously you probably won't be using these colors. This is just to show you the example. If we go into the outfits page, you'll see maybe a couple of the other colors that I've selected. So there's the red that I selected. There's the blue that I selected. If we go into kits, that's the green. And all of those colors come directly from this theme that I have now set up. And of course, me being who I am, I requested that Amino add this revert theme colors. So if you decide, okay, I want to go back to default on here, click on that revert theme colors, boom, you're good to go. It's going to go back to what you saw when I first had this plugin installed. All right, that should give you a pretty good idea of how much better Welcome Controller V2 is over Welcome Controller V1, made by the same person, just with a little bit more advanced features. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you did purchase V1, however long ago, you can be upgraded to version 2 at no extra charge. That being said, it's at such a good price. Anybody that's looking for any kind of an info panel, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a better one than Welcome Controller V2. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor and hit that like button. Trust me, it helps me more than you'll ever know. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, click on that button right over there. And of course, if you want to support what I'm doing at Rust Admin Academy, it is very much appreciated. You can click on that Patreon button right down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next week.